Well, Dr. Sue, always great to connect with you. We've had several great conversations, and we're both passionate about fasting and how we can activate the body's innate ability to heal and repair itself. And so let's talk about what fasting does to the cells, organs, and body as a whole.
Dr. Jockers, thank you for inviting me to your show here. This is such an important educational session. I think, in the age of medicine, everybody's looking to drugs for a solution, but the body actually has the ability to heal. And I often say, when you get a cut on the skin, you don't do much. You keep it clean, you put a Band-Aid on because the body has the ability to heal. Now, for age-related chronic diseases such as metabolic syndrome or hypertension, certainly it's more than just a cut that requires a Band-Aid. But the body actually has already designs within itself that allows the healing to take place. But you have to create the right environment for it. And this is where fasting came about. And we talked about this in the past where, fasting is one of the bases for lifestyle medicine. Lifestyle medicine meaning it's a set of interventions that based on changes in the way you live, you eat, you move, that has the ability to bring healing to the body. And yeah, I'd love to dive into a little bit more later.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, fasting, I actually went to chiropractic school, and one of the big principles in chiropractic was the body doesn't need any help, just no interference, right? And
That's a good
oftentimes
point.
the food that we're eating, especially in our society today, highly processed, highly insulogenic food is interfering with the body's innate ability to heal and repair itself. And fasting is, a way of just removing that interference and allowing the body to do what it was designed to do. And our ancestors, they didn't really have a choice when it came to fasting, right? I mean, they didn't have refrigerators and pantries. It wasn't like, I mean, there are obviously religious communities that fast intentionally and still do today and have in the past. But for many of our ancestors, going back thousands of years ago, fasting was just because food was scarce, right? They
Mm,
went through times of famine, and when food was available, they would eat well, right? They would feast. And so it was a seasonal
hmm
kind of variation that they would go through, and amazing things would happen in their body when they did that.
And that's absolutely right. And these ancient practices really allows the body, it unlocks the body's ability to rejuvenate, to reset. And just the modern day lifestyle, it's just been difficult because we're all surrounded, by very artificial, means of food supply. For example, I
Mhm.
mean, we never used to have refrigeration, so people used to eat fresh food. You cannot put, now food could be on the shelves for months because we add all these things to it, right? And but even getting things done, that means you got to move your body around to get it done. But now today we have all kinds of. I remember when I was little, I used to actually turn channels for my parents because we didn't have a remote control back then. It was like you got to go and run and turn those things. You see, I mean, physical activities really have decreased over time, and no wonder, right, that we have so many kind of a modern day ailments and diseases and so the way to go back to eating our ancestral foods to move like our ancestors really they're really treating the root cause. But you also know because we're so busy, as modern people, it's very hard to do that every single day. And it's very hard to live as saints. And so this is where we have this practical dilemma, right? We know what's good for us, but also it's difficult to do. And that's why I believe innovation in lifestyle medicine, innovation in the way we go back to living how our ancestors live really requires some new thinking and new technology.
Yeah, for sure. And this is where, I've been talking about fasting and the benefits of things like intermittent fasting, extended fasting for quite a long time. And again, it's something all of our ancestors did. It's built into our genetic blueprint. But the way that we're consuming food, we are, we're eating foods that are highly processed, that are insulogenic. And so we are activating a lot of these nutrient sensing pathways that are associated with high amounts of growth. And we're inhibiting the repair pathways. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. And so, food is obviously good, and but we need qualification. because to say food is good or bad, it's too loose, right?
Mm,
It's how much you eat, what you eat. But the new dimension of discussion that have come into play in science is how long or when not to eat, right? The timing of
yeah.
our eating pattern right now, that's the new concept because for a long time we debated about what's good for you and how much is good for you. But the new dimension of discussion in the scientific field is now when to eat and when not to eat. It turns out that food is obviously anabolic. It builds the body. You need food. Without
Hmm.
food for a long time, we call that starvation, and starvation is never good for life.
Hmm.
And so just talking about fasting, whether it being good or not, it's like talking about exercise or moving your body. Is it good or not?
Mm,
Of course, it's good, but in excess, for example, if you run marathon every single day, it cannot be good for your body.
yeah.
It'll break it down. Same thing. If you eat too much, it's not good. If you eat too little, it's also not good, right? And so we need qualification around these terms, and that's why the our understanding of fasting really has opened up the windows into what is considered good or not. So to me, there are three different levels of fasting. Okay, there's the behavior aspect of fasting. This is where, hey, you're eating something, you're not fasting. Okay, that's a behavior. You can see food entering into your
Hmm.
mouth. That's clearly when you're eating or not. However, because of our understanding of the physiology of fasting, we now can actually simulate some aspect of fasting, even though you're fasting. What do I mean by that? When people are on a long-term ketogenic diet, like reducing carbohydrate consumption, you are actually shifting your consumption of your calories by the body from carbohydrates to fat. And we do that, you're generating ketones in the body and you're utilizing ketones for the energy. And in some way, that simulates an aspect of fasting, right? So that's why ketogenic diet, it raises ketone. When you're fasting, also ketone rises. But there's actually a even deeper level of fasting, what I call cellular fasting. This is when over the last 20 years, we understand what happens to when the cell sees food. You see, a cell has got this ears and eyes on the surface of the cells that keep looking out for nutrients such as glucose and proteins, and also its smaller components called amino acids. And when the cell sees these molecules flowing in the bloodstream, it says, "Hey, it's time to grow." And so it go and grab these nutrient molecules into the body, and these molecule upon entering to the cells binds to this what's called these nutrients receptors and or nutrient sensing pathways. And what they do is they tell the cell, "Hey, we got food, we got fuel. It's time to grow." And so the cells gets bigger. It begins to build cellular structures that keeps the integrity of the cell. These all sound really good because we all want growth. But remember, just like a car, you cannot just go around all the time without stopping.
Hmm.
In engine might overheat, your brake pads, for example, coming down from a mountain, you got to shift your gear. If you keep using the brake is going to burn up. So when the cells constantly grows, it wears and tears and it accelerates aging. That's what a lot of people do not know, right? So in our society, for example, we're eating too much. There's too much protein, too much glucose, too much
Yeah.
fats, everything is too much. And so what we ended up happening is we have now fatty liver, we have a fatty belly. I mean, right? We're growing, it's good. But now this is when we ask the question, if something is being used all the time, it's growing all the time, shouldn't it also need a break? Should we also take a break? And this is where fasting comes in.
Yeah, for sure. And so those nutrient sensing pathways, some of the ones that are, I guess, are more well known are insulin, of course, right, as well as IGF-1 and mTOR. And my audience would be many of them would be familiar with some of these terms. These all signal growth, right? Growth in the body, storage, fat storage, for example, growth, and to a degree, they're important, right, for maintaining muscle mass, for example, preventing against sarcopenia. And especially as somebody ages, we want to make sure we're preventing against that. But when they're hyperactive, right, constantly being activated, then it doesn't allow us to undergo this necessary process of autophagy or
Mhm.
cellular cleanup, right? And can you talk more about the importance of that?
Yeah. I mean, this is such an important topic because in 2016, the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology was given to Professor Otsumi, who
Mm,
spent his life really looking at this process of cellular turnover. And so you can imagine, in the history of life forms on Earth, it could be billions of years, right? So, or how many years you believe we've existed on Earth? And more often than not, we see that the supply of food was interrupted, right? There was famine, there was no rain, no growth, the plants were gone, the animals were gone, right? And so all of us, even the single cell amoeba, had gone through many periods of starvation when there was no food. If the cells did not adapt to those environment where food was not available, then the species would have gone extinct. And so the beauty of the design of life form was when the environment says there was no food, the cell says, okay, I got to figure something out. So it begins by digesting part of itself. Sounds like pretty barbaric.
mhm.
But when you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, what would you do? Would you cut your arm off so you can escape that cliff, right? Probably would. And this is what the cells actually turn on this emergency response to say, there's no food, it's time to digest. And hoping what? Food will be available in a day or two or three or four. And so over the years, it also has developed in such a way where it's never going to say, well, I'm going to just kill the brain of the cells off because that it takes one day and you're dead. Right? Again, the cell is dead.
Mhm.
It's going to look for the less valuable parts of the cell. For example, older mitochondria. For example, a misfolded protein that wasn't functioning very well, or a cellular organelle that wasn't that was kind of second rate, if you will. Why don't we start eating those off, convert them, breaking them down so I can use the energy to survive, hoping that food will be available the next day. Because this happened
Yeah.
all the time in nature. So the cell came up with these responses against the pressure of nature. And it turns out that when you look at these pathways, how they do this, the cellular autophagy, the self-eating process, we saw the same process in yeast, which is a single cell organism, to fruit flies, to even mammals like rodents, and now even to humans. And so this is really what I call the miracle of life. Without this, without this mechanism, once you use up the fat in the body, the organism
Mm,
would die. I mean, many more species would have gone extinct. But because of this cellular physiology, we survived, right? Our species survived. Now you think about because now we know these pathways. We know exactly what happens with fasting. We know the signals, molecular signals on which molecules got activated or deactivated. So now we can actually simulate this process under a controlled environment. And this is what I call control fasting.
mm.
We can actually provide just enough nutrients, but fall below the detection thresholds of these nutrient sensors. So you can hack the cells and say, oh, I don't see food around, but in fact, we can sneak some food in there so the cells can still be nourished, but at the same time, triggering these repairing pathways. And this is what I call the 21st century science,
Mm.
right? That is really building upon what nature has designed for millennia. And this is really the beauty, tied back to what I said a little bit earlier about the cellular fasting, because now you can still eat behaviorally, but you can now create the environment of cellular fasting. And this is a concept called the fasting mimicking mechanism, right? We're mimicking the fast. Why? Because as modern day people, we don't want to fast, right? It's too difficult to fast. So if we could provide nutrients just enough and not let the nutrient sensors know that the food is coming into the body, then it's like sending a stealth bomber into a territory, right? Under the radar, no one knows you're there. And that is the achievement of modern day science.
Yeah, this is key because again, this process of autophagy, we all need to be undergoing this on a regular basis. However, most people their insulin is too high and it won't activate it's blocking, it's inhibiting this autophagy process. And so we've got to get that down. And that's where fasting comes in. But the compliance level when it comes to doing water fasted for extended periods of time is low, right? Obviously, most
Yeah.
people, they might have a motivation to do it, but it doesn't last long enough, right? It can be tough to do. And so, and there's also a lot of people with different medical conditions where they need to take medications and they need to take those with food. There's a whole wide variety of different issues where people need to get that insulin down, but they also need to be consuming some level of food. And so you guys have figured this out. You've hacked this system where you can consume food with this fasting mimicking diet, but you're not activating these nutrient sensing pathways. So you're not
Mhm.
inhibiting autophagy. Your body's undergoing this natural cellular healing, cellular cleansing process. Meanwhile, the individual is being nourished with food. And that's why you call it nourished fasting.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. And it didn't come easy. It started with a lot of the sort of molecular science research work funded by the National Institutes of Health. And the pioneer investigator in this field is Walter Longo, Professor Walter Longo, who's the director of the Longevity Institute at USC. So you see, it took 25 years to really starting looking at yeast, a single cell, and try to figure out the mechanism of growth and mechanism of longevity, and then continue on with more complex organism, and then now with fasting mimicking diet, just us alone, so the maker of fasting mimicking diet, we have started our 47th clinical trial. So what I mean when I say clinical trials, that means actual testing in humans, right, with results. And this is where now we're seeing, for example, multiple cycles of the fasting mimicking diet can reduce the insulin level, can reduce the insulin resistance, right? Can help to drive belly fat loss. So central fat decreases while preserving your body composition, enhancing your body composition. And so there's so many benefits right now that many universities, around 18 to 20 universities around the world, have now investigated the effect of fasting mimicking diet, not only in metabolic health, such as hypertension, cholesterol, diabetes, but also they've begun to look into even oncology, and even in cancer, autoimmune conditions, and the last frontier, the neurodegenerative conditions. And when you think about how is it possible, a simple intervention such as fasting mimicking can drive so much result? And a lot of the more conventional thinkers would say, well, how can it work on metabolism and cancers and autoimmune? I mean, you would need so many different kinds of medicine to do that. And my argument would be, hey, look at, for example, some of the most fundamental interventions in lifestyle medicine, exercise. How does one intervention, such as exercise, improve your heart health, increases your lung capacity, strengthen your bones, strengthen your muscle, help you to lose weight, help with mental health, and help with cognitive function? You think about, like, that's one intervention. Most people would say, "Oh, that's impossible." When you look at it, of course, now you see, because it's a systemic impact, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exercise has a systemic impact. It's not like a drug where it targets the last pathways of a very complex pathway. And so if you go downstream, then yes, you need multiple drugs for multiple conditions. But if you go upstream, interventions that have a holistic impact, then you have so many positive benefits derived from that. I'll give you another example of the basic principles in lifestyle medicine. Sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody does it. If you don't
Yep.
sleep, everything, everything gets worse. No one ever says, "Oh, my memory is better when I don't sleep." No one ever says my performance is better when I don't sleep, right? Athletes, they have to sleep well. Otherwise, chronically sleep deprived athletes don't perform well. And so, yeah, that's another one. And I want to propose to the audience that doing fasting correctly, and I want to qualify that, so doing correctly, right, can have multiple benefits on the body as well. And the science has told us so.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, basically, what we're seeing is that getting our body uncomfortable with some sort of a what we call hormetic stress, which is basically a stressor that our ancestors would have encountered. And it's a short term stress on the body, like exercise, right? You don't want to, just like you said, you don't want to overtrain, but
Yeah.
short period of time exercising stresses the body, but then the body adapts as long as it has time to recover and heal. And that's what we're doing when we're sleeping. Same with going through periods where we're eating lower amounts of calories, like this fasting mimicking diet, or even no calories, like fasting. And so those are hormetic stressors. They're not things we want to do long term, but for short periods of time, they have this amazing health boosting effect on the body. Even things like, for example, getting in heat, like a sauna, right, has great benefits for a short period of time, right? Same with cold, right, for a short period of
Right.
time. So these are stressors that our ancestors would have encountered in nature, and then they would have ideally had time to recover and heal from that and cycled in and out of those stressors. And that created this amazing health boosting effect on the body. And you guys, what you're doing with L-Nutra is you guys are actually clinically researching what's happening with this sort of feast famine cycling, when somebody's undergoing this 5 day fasting mimicking diet, they're going through this intentional time of famine, and then you're actually going through and figuring out the research on it, what's actually happening in the body each one of these days, and then also how does that impact these chronic health conditions. And you guys are seeing some pretty remarkable results, and I know there's some
Mhm.
great results on biological aging as well, right, and
Yeah.
actually reducing the aging process.
And this is where it's amazing because many of the challenges we see in our society are age related. For example, when you're 20s, you might have party hard, but few people develop type 2 diabetes, even though lifestyle was terrible. Why? Because you were young. Your body had the ability to recover, to
Mhm.
bounce back from a stress. But as we get older, yes, we accumulate a lot more fat and so on and so forth. But our body to regenerate, a body to repair, our bodies to repair, the ability of the body to repair also decreases over time. And so, yes, we could, on one hand, we could treat all the aftermath, all the consequences of that. We could take blood pressure medicine, cholesterol medicine, diabetes medicine, and being a physician, I would say yes, there are situations where you need to use them. But wouldn't it be more fundamentally plausible if we were to treat the root cause,
Mhm.
right? Better, healthier eating, more activities, better sleep, less stress, and so on and so forth. But now we have a new tool. Even on top of that, we have a new tool. We know by doing the fasting mimicking diet just 3 times a year, 3 to 4 cycles. Each cycle is 5 days. We're talking about 15 to 20 days per year. We have now shown a reduction in bio age or biological age by 2.5 years. So what does that mean? You think about, well, everybody has a chronologic age, right? That's related to the year you were born and the month and the day. But it doesn't reflect truly what your body is really, the condition of your health. You could be 40 years old, but you could have a 50-year-old body and vice versa, right? And so there are ways to assess biological age. There's DNA methylation, there's metabolic age, and other markers. We have shown in a study done with Yale, UCLA, and USC that use of the fasting mimicking diet, 3 to 4 cycles a year, reduces on average 2.5 years in
Mm.
biological age. And when you think about if you reduce your biological age, what do? You're really giving back the body's ability to resist these age-related conditions,
Mm.
right? And so that would be very fundamental. And that could be added on to whatever else you're doing, your exercise, your de-stress, better sleep, right? Better community, right? Better food. And we need tools like this. We in the past we always look for medications and other supplements for this, but the reality is now we've uncovered a new tool that's within our body just simply by activating these ancient genes, these ancient survival mechanisms that have been built in from yeast to fruit flies to rodents to us, that we can achieve better health.
Yeah, for sure. And your clinical research is showing just really profound results. I mean, 2.5 years of biological age by doing what was it, 3 cycles
Hmm.
of the Prolon fasting mimicking diet. And so that is profound, and that's really important. If people are living a long time, we have a high lifespan, but we have a very low health span, meaning
Right.
somebody might live till they're 78, but the last 15 years of their life, they're on medications,
Mm.
right? And they have poor quality of life. Maybe they spend the last 5 years in a nursing home, with dementia. And so we don't want to live like that, obviously. We want to be able to be self-sufficient, do the things that we want to do, well into our 80s and even into our 90s. And so this is a really powerful mechanism for helping us do that. Now, let's talk about how somebody practically applies
Yeah.
the fasting mimicking diet.
Yeah. So the fasting mimicking diet comes in two different forms. Okay. It comes in a box. That's one form, right? We call it Prolon. It's for health, wellness, for longevity. It's a do-it-yourself. You can order online and basically comes in a box that has 5 days portioned out for you. Day one, you eat this. Day two, you eat this. And it has bars, has sugars, has vitamins in there, has supplements, and everything you need to stimulate the effect of a fasting. So no shopping list. You don't have to go out. You don't have to weigh things. You don't have to prepare the meal. Everything is all thought for you, and the cost is it's equivalent to almost your grocery costs if you think about it. Okay, so of that 5 day. And so if you're interested in that kind of, health and wellness, you don't have carry any health conditions, you simply wanted to lose that belly fat, you wanted to enhance your lifespan and health span, there is this Prolon that you can use, that you can do yourself. However, we also have now put together a program for those with conditions. Now, and the program has doctor to evaluate you every 3 months, has dietitian to hold your hand to individualize this fasting mimicking diet journey together with you. And then of course it comes in with a fasting mimicking diet again, but for people with conditions. Why? Because this works. Because this has the ability to rejuvenate the cells. Many of the people will experience a decrease in their medications, a decrease medication in their diabetes, in their blood pressure medicine. And so that's why, first and foremost, we want a doctor. We have a lifestyle medicine doctor to evaluate using the labs to follow your hemoglobin A1C, to follow your blood pressure, to follow your cholesterol levels, so we can tailor the interventions to
Mm.
you. Now, in the part of the program we call L-Nutra Health. L-Nutra is the name of our company. Health is the medical division of this. We want to make sure that not only are you supported for the 5 days, but also the rest 25 days in the month. And that's where the dietitian becomes your personal coach. They will text you. They will have meetings with you twice a month to make sure that you know what to eat for the rest 25 days. And we call that a disease remission protocol. We're trying to
Yeah.
restore the body's ability to heal with less dependence on medications. And so you can look for that on l-nutrahealth.com, l-nutrahealth.com.
Yeah, and that's really great that you guys have the doctor involved for those individuals that are taking medications that do have chronic health conditions. That's so important because there's so many different doctors. I know you're an endocrinologist. Most endocrinologists out there have no idea about lifestyle medicine. And they're great at prescribing medications, looking at lab tests, and figuring out what dosage of what medication you need. But when you start talking to them about doing something like a fasting mimicking diet, I mean, they just don't have any education on it, unfortunately, at this point. And oftentimes they caution against it. And so, and when you are on medications, like if you are on diabetes medications, it's really important you're working with somebody that knows how to work with
Sure.
these because your body's going to start healing, getting better. Your insulin's going to come down. And these medications, actually, if you're taking the normal dose, can cause more problems. And so you really need that tailored help with it. And then, of course, follow up with a nutritionist to really make sure that you're putting this into a sustainable, practical lifestyle.
Yeah. Dr. Jockers, as you know, you're also in healthcare, and in healthcare, I think we really practicing sick care, right? When people are sick, they come to
Mhm.
us. What we are trying to do is introducing a different model where people come with multiple medications. We want to enable their body's ability to heal based on science, right? Based on safe medicine. And the doctor, when evaluating the patient, if your glucose keeps coming down because the body is getting better because you're treating the root cause, and then of course the medication should come off. I think many of my colleagues in medicine today, when a patient comes to him or her, they will simply increase medications, right? The argument or the possibility of medication de-escalation is so far from their minds. They also feel that medication is the only choice. Now, there's always a room for medications for sure, but many of these age-related, lifestyle-based diseases, I think is much better for us to work on the foundation, the root causes. And the beauty with the fasting mimicking diet is it's not every single day. You don't have to fast every single day. It's 5 days per month. And for the rest of the months, the 25 days, you go back to eating a reasonable diet, tailored, personalized by your dietitian. And that's why the program is so powerful. And so now with these two choices, we could cover everybody.
Hmm.
If you're healthy, you wanted to drive a better health span, prolonlife.com is where you go. If you have a health condition, maybe a diabetes, maybe a blood pressure, cholesterol, pre-diabetes, you want to drive a weight loss safely with a healthcare provider, the program you can find on L-Nutra So two
Yeah,
different
perfect.
sites, same technology, but do it yourself versus a program format.
Perfect. And that more intensive phase on the lnutrahealth.com, that's going to be where you're doing the 5 days, ideally 5 days a month, right? And then until you get things stabilized, and then you can switch over to, more wellness
Or
focus where it's
that's
like once a quarter, right? Or once or 3 times a year.
That's exactly right. And but it all depends on the person, right? So the personalization is key here.
Yeah.
And we've got a suite of support, suite of products to support that individual. Most important is the know-how, the expertise. Our doctors are lifestyle medicine certified, board certified, our dietitian are longevity science and nutrition certified. So these are the experts in the field.
Wonderful. Well, guys, definitely make sure you're checking this out. So if you have health conditions, you're taking medications, uh, you want to go to l-nutrahealth.com. And if you're wellness focused and you want to see that reduction in biological age and just live well, then you want to go to it's prolonlife.com. Prolon
That's
Life. Yep. Great. And then the last question, Dr. Sue, when these medical schools, we need to get like a personalized, we need to get lifestyle wellness or lifestyle medicine class taught by Dr. William Sue, right? That it's like a video training that all of them take, right, as part of kind of a mandatory training, so they start to understand how you can use lifestyle to help reduce biological aging and to help people dramatically improve people's health and help get them off of these medications, right?
it's a
When
new
is this going to
movement.
happen?
Well, Dr. Jockers, it's a new movement, right? I
Yeah.
think people are sick and tired. Even if you look at the very popular drugs, such as GLP-1 drugs, um, by the end of 2 years, only about 1 out of 7 people stay on the drug.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable, right?
I
So
was reading I was reading a study where it showed that in the study 50% dropped out because of the side effects.
yeah, yeah.
This is an Ozempic study.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely right. And so what the solution is for big pharma, they'll come up with a second drug to counter the side effect of the first drug.
Mm,
So you take both drugs. So healthcare costs will go up higher. And the second drug is going to have some side effects. So you add a third drug.
totally.
But meanwhile, age-related, lifestyle-based conditions such as obesity, metabolic syndrome, diabetes. Hey, let's treat the root cause. I think that's a more plausible way. There's a movement called food is medicine movement, and that encompasses not only about what to eat, how much to eat, but now the new dimension of when to eat or not to eat. And now our lives are richer. Our health could be better because now we have new tools in our fight against age-related conditions.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I love all the great work you guys are doing there with Prolon Health, Prolon Life, as well as L-Nutra. Dr. Sue, keep up the great work. You guys are constantly publishing different clinical studies on a wide range of different health conditions, and hopefully this again will trickle into the medical school and overall medical education. More and more doctors will become more aware of this. But in the meantime, if you're listening, be sure to check out prolonlife.com if you're more wellness oriented, if you're trying to get well from a health condition, need help with that medical doctor supervision, then you're looking at lnutrahealth.com. So check that out. Dr. Sue, any last words of inspiration here for our audience?
I just say, don't wait. Do it. The tools are easy right now. Don't wait. Take control of your health.
Amen. All right. Well, be blessed. We'll see you soon.
All right.